Hi there guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'll be covering a new what if. Now this what if is a sort of random one, and it might have not really happened. It does seem very unlikely. Not the what if itself, but the story behind it. But it was originally supposed to be something else, and it came back, and I came back to this point and thought, well actually it would make more sense if this was what the what if was based off. And the what if I'm doing is, what if Krillin told Chi-Chi what happened to Goku and Gohan? Now, as I said, it doesn't sound like something that would change much in the story, but I think it would in its own retrospect. So we begin off with Krillin seeing dead Goku. This time, Krillin feels much more guilty about this. If Krillin gone, he might have helped stop Goku from dying, or they could have found another way to beat Raditz. But he didn't. He was too much of a coward, and he's really bothered about what happened. So when the responsibility falls upon Krillin to tell Chi-Chi what had happened, he feels like he owes it to Goku, not just for letting him die, but Goku avenged him in the OG Dragon Ball and revived him. He needs to do this for Goku. So when he arrives at Chi-Chi's house, he enters and tells Chi-Chi to sit down. He needs to explain something, and after explaining what happens, Chi-Chi does go nuts. Chi-Chi throws stuff at him, Chi-Chi screams at Krillin, she punches at him, but Krillin just sits down and takes all of it. After a few hours, he then manages to calm Chi-Chi down, and Chi-Chi just says, she demands him to go and find Gohan, and Krillin sort of has a look on his face saying, I don't know if I could, because he's with Piccolo. Piccolo is a lot stronger than Krillin, but before he could get a word out, Chi-Chi begins to cry. She falls on her knees and she begins begging for Krillin to go and, find Gohan, which is weird for Krillin to see, because Chi-Chi's quite fearsome, and seeing her revert down to this is sort of upsetting him. And she begins saying this is the last thing, sort of forgetting about Dragon Balls and all that. She says Gohan is the last thing I have of Goku, and after hearing that, he sort of does remember, yeah, maybe I do owe this to Goku as well. This isn't what my, not payback, but it sort of is like me, is, what I mean, like helping Goku back. This is what he does. He tells Chi-Chi he will try and find Gohan and try and bring him back, which makes her smile and sort of makes her stop crying. So Krillin gets up and begins to leave, and at this point, I don't want to say Krillin can fly too well. Yeah, he could fly in the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, but it wasn't very confidently, as you saw. It looked sort of like he was new to this, and I know it had been 4 years since then, but I don't know, I just want to say Krillin can fly, but not amazingly. So he is going to find them relatively fast, just not as fast as he would if he had mastered flying. Now, Krillin gets a lock on sort of where Piccolo's energy is, and he follows it for 2 days. He does notice it tends to be moving further and further away from him, but on the second day of following him, he finds Piccolo, but notices that Gohan isn't there with Piccolo. In fact, he isn't anywhere nearby. So Krillin asks Piccolo, where is Gohan? Piccolo just sits there, meditating, ignoring him. Oops, sorry about that. Krillin then shouts at him, where is Gohan? Which is sort of surprising to Piccolo. He knows Krillin's a warrior, but he quit their last match, so he doesn't know what's happening here. Then, sorry, brain just went. Then Krillin demands that Piccolo gives him Gohan so he can take him home. Piccolo sort of is just amused by this. Piccolo knows he could very, very likely win a fight against Krillin at this point. He respects Krillin as a fighter and knows that he's not a weak martial artist, but he knows there is a big difference in their power. And when Krillin sort of hears Piccolo chuckle, he takes a fighting stance, very shakily, like his hands are shaking, and he's quite nervous about it. Not because he's scared of Piccolo per se, but I think it's more after dying to someone who is brother of this person, you would be nervous fighting them. Plus, Krillin does know there's a difference between power in those two. So, you know, they both... Krillin demands again. Sorry, I didn't mean... Krillin does demand to know where Gohan is again. And Piccolo just ignores him this time. Krillin then flies straight towards... Well, not flies, but jumps straight towards Piccolo and punches him straight in the face. And this surprises Piccolo. He wasn't expecting him to actually make a move, so he wasn't really ready for it. And this sort of pisses Piccolo off as well. He grabs Krillin by the back of his gi and begins kicking him repeatedly in the stomach over and over again. And after a couple of seconds of that, throws Krillin away from him and says, Piccolo says, "You need to stop messing around. We need to be ready for when the Saiyans get here. I'm trying to train. You should go and train as well." And I hope everyone loved that spot on Piccolo impression, by the way. And just thought I'd say that because that was pretty atrocious. Through huffing and sort of trying to catch his breath after being kicked in the stomach so many times, Piccolo has a quick idea. He hadn't really thought of it until now, but he has got an idea quickly. And through his breath, he says, "Why not train for the Saiyans together?" Which sort of surprises Piccolo more than anything, as Piccolo doesn't often see, sort of people wanting to be around him. So that really does surprise Piccolo, as, you know, someone wants to spend time with him. Because I think Piccolo isn't fully bad. I don't think he ever really was. I think he was just, in his mindset, just assumed he had to be the bad guy because of his heritage. But he never really was. He didn't kill anyone, did he? He was quite a respectful fighter. But obviously he wants to keep up this facade of being evil. He sort of says no. Which Krillin quickly says back, "Well, I'm not leaving here without Gohan or you agreeing to train. And I'll just keep coming back and keep annoying you." Which sounds like something Krillin would do. And after a few minutes of silence, Piccolo is thinking, training with someone who is weaker than him is gonna suck, as Piccolo isn't going to see too much benefit from it, but he's also got to train Gohan at some point, whenever he accepts the fact he's a fighter. And Piccolo then says, "Yes, you can train, but I'm not taking it easy on you. I will go all out if I have to, because we need to be ready for these Saiyans." Now, he doesn't tell Krillin where he's put Gohan, as he doesn't really trust him yet. And to be fair, Krillin doesn't trust Piccolo, so it's alright. And they spend one night rest, and for the next 6 months, they train on and off. They train together all the time. Not very often taking a break, except for when Krillin needs to eat, or they both need to drink or sleep. Now, I believe during this whole time, Krillin would be trying to convince Piccolo to let him go see his mom, because that would be a good motivator for him. So if he does well in training once, he can go and see his mom, which, would be good. And I imagine during those 6 months of training while Gohan's out in the wilderness, not many story details would change, except Krillin was there to help stop Great Ape Gohan, and the fighters on the lookout don't know where Krillin is, and just thinking he's not showing, maybe training with Roshi. But everyone except Kami knows. So that's what happens during these 6 months, and things begin to change when Gohan gets back to his house. The bit where he sees his mom and then walks away. And when Piccolo shows up, this is where Gohan does accept the fact he needs to fight. But Gohan is very surprised to see Krillin is with Piccolo. And I think he's a little relieved knowing that at least he sort of knows someone. This is one of his dad's oldest friends, so, he doesn't really need to worry. Now, over these 6 months, Piccolo and Krillin's relationship has grown a little bit. They're not friends, nowhere near that, but they don't hate each other anymore. And, they can deal with one another. And at this point, I would probably say Krillin's power level is 1,800-ish, which is his canon power level when the Saiyans arrive, and Piccolo's would probably be about 2,000. But for these next 6 months, they've got to spend a lot of time training Gohan. So, if you're wondering, I would put Gohan probably around 235 from living out in the forest and woods for so long. Now, these next few months of training are nowhere near as rough for Gohan. Krillin's there, so I think Piccolo and Krillin would take it in turns training Gohan. So Krillin would be teaching him a much nicer way to probably be training him much nicer. And Piccolo would be, going all Piccolo on him. Piccolo's training would probably see a lot more results of, growth, but Krillin's is nice because he just gets a nice break and he's still training in Gohan's mind. Now, when they aren't training Gohan, so when he's asleep or stuff, Piccolo and Krillin will train together. Only for a few hours a night, but they have to do this so they're ready as well. And sometimes they will train Gohan together, trying to teach him, martial arts, ki control, stuff like that. Stuff Krillin's quite good at. And Piccolo and Krillin would start learning some of each other's techniques. Now, I would say that a month has passed since they started training Gohan, and it is at this point Krillin has actually managed to convince Piccolo to let Gohan spend 1 day a month with his mother as long as he trains hard for the rest of it. And while Gohan's away, those two can train together. And Krillin, what a great fusion name. Krillin has been bugging Piccolo about this for the 7 months they have been training. So they do fly towards Goku's house, with Piccolo sort of staying off in the distance, sort of hiding out in the woods, and Krillin knocking on the door with Gohan right next to him. When Chi-Chi opens the door and sees Krillin there, she almost hits Krillin, but notices Gohan on his left, and within an instant gets down and hugs him. She's ecstatic to see him, like any mother would be. And after a few minutes of hugging each other and a few tears shed from Chi-Chi's end, Chi-Chi begins to thank Krillin. Krillin begins to tell her, don't start thanking him yet. there is something that needs to be explained quickly. And Gohan sits down and explains to Chi-Chi what the arrangement is. That he can only see her once a month for the whole day, but every other day of the month he needs to train. Which Chi-Chi isn't too happy about. She doesn't like it. She doesn't like the fact she won't be able to see him as much. But Gohan begins to say he's trying to do this to save the world, the one his dad fought to protect years ago. And this sort of hits something in Chi-Chi's head. She can sort of see Goku in Gohan right there. And as much as she doesn't like it, she understands that it might be the best thing for now. I know it might not sound like Chi-Chi to be this reasonable, but the nostalgia of seeing Goku in her son like that, it was too much for her and she had to cave. But she says, before Krillin leaves, why don't you train a bit closer so I can at least make sure Gohan's alright? And Krillin just says, Piccolo trains a bit rough and we don't want any like stray blasts going off and hitting your house and blowing it up or hurting you. We won't ever be too far away, but, you know, we can't be relatively close. And with that, Krillin turns around and flies away, leaving Gohan and Chi-Chi to spend the whole day with each other. And in this time, Gohan sort of gets his hair trimmed down and he sort of gets a little bit of a haircut like his dad's. Sort of like how it was in the Cell Saga, I would argue, just a bit shorter, if anything. Now, Piccolo and Krillin do begin to train for the whole day, and at the end of the day, they both go and pick him up. And this cycle does sort of repeat for over the next 6 months. But, unfortunately, on the day of attack, the Saiyans land, Gohan is with his mum for the day. It was that day they unluckily chose. And when the Saiyans land, Piccolo and Krillin instantly sense the energy, and they begin to panic a little, as the energy of the two Saiyans is quite close to Gohan, and if they decide to go for Gohan first, he will die. He won't win or survive by himself. So the two immediately fly towards Gohan and Chi-Chi, and when they land, Gohan is also in the midst of putting his gi on and leaving the house. But just before the three of them can fly away, the two Saiyans land in front of them, with the three fighters not really sure what to do. Chi-Chi is in the house behind them, and if the battle's to begin here, she most likely won't survive. Plus, these Saiyans are much stronger than they expected. So, right now, they are a bit confused on what to do. However, this is where I'm going to leave this episode. I know I've left it just before, the fighting begins, but I think this episode's 1, got on too long, and 2, I think it'll be a nice way to, just introduce what the story is. So, I hope everyone enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about it, and I hope you have a good day or good night. See you later. I just want to give a quick explanation to why this isn't What If Goku Landed in the MCU Part 2. It's because I sort of got stumped making the second part. Now, I do have a general idea written down and I do sort of know what I'm doing with it, but this was basically ready before the MCU one dropped, so I thought I might as well get this one done, even though there was a long break in between. I am sorry about that. It was me being lazy at the end of the day. So I hope this was alright, and I'll try and get the next MCU part out within the next week or two. I'll try and get it out before Friday, to be fair, but that's at least what I'll try to do. But I'll make no promises.